Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do another top 5 list. So this time we're going to do a top 5 list of my favorite sequences in fantasy. So I want to talk about some of the coolest scenes that I've seen read in different fantasy books and the ones that are my favorite. So I want to do a top 5 list. So this is definitely going to contain some spoilers. I'm going to try to keep it very light, but I am definitely going to be spoiling some stuff because these sequences are in and of themselves spoilers. So um so be warned for that. There will be spoilers for multiple different books in this video. All right, so with that being said, please make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And if you're interested, please check out the Patreon. The link is in the description. And as always, let's begin. All right, like I said, these items on my top 5 list are going to contain some spoilers because of course these are scenes in these books, so spoilers are kind of inevitable, but I am going to kind of keep it, as spoiler free as I possibly can. So number 5, it has to be the scene in Superpowered's Year 4 where Vince realizes what the cards that his best friend gave him means. So it's during a tournament battle where he's fighting against someone else, and he's given a deck of cards by his friends before the fight starts. So he's using his time in the battle. He seems to be overwhelmed, and he doesn't seem to be able to defeat the ability of the person he's going up against. But he's like mulling over the cards. Like, why would his friend give him a deck of playing cards and stuff? Like, what could it possibly mean? So he's like thinking about it and thinking about it. And then he ultimately comes to this conclusion that based on everything he's learned and everything he's like quote unquote stolen and stuff like that, it kind of represents him. He's basically like he's a shuffle. He's a deck of cards kind of thing. So a lot of his character arc had to do with him essentially absorbing the abilities and knowledge of everyone around him. A little bit like Deku in My Hero Academia, except he doesn't have a little notebook. But throughout the majority of the story, he's like learning techniques and skills and like practicing with others and like taking their advice and all this kind of stuff. So when he's in his senior year and he's in his final battle kind of thing, he kind of realizes that, oh, I am everything I've learned and been like taught and like stolen and all this kind of stuff. So it kind of gives him this new lease on the battle, and he starts to understand like it's not just about surviving the next attack. He needs to start figuring out how to win. So I love that part. That's kind of the culmination of his story arc in the entire series, where he kind of learns to accept himself and his ability and all of that kind of stuff. So he really does get into gear and like go back into the fight and just absolutely rocks the house, and I love it. It's such a fun sequence. I really, really want these to be adapted into a movie because it will make such a cool action scene. I would love it so, so much. It's so well done. The character work and the action work and the description of the environments and everything is just really well done. It's such a fun sequence. I love it so much. So yeah, that's also my number 5, and I still love it that much. So that tells you how much I love these next 4. So yeah, let's go ahead and move on to number 4. So, number 4 has to be a sequence in Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. So, towards the end of the book, there's a character who is basically trying to sell another character as a slave to a dragon, essentially. So after all this manipulation and stuff that's gone on before this instance comes up, you kind of see the character that's being sold off as an underdog a little bit. You kind of see her as like being not weak, but a little bit meek and just kind of, kind of pushed around by higher authority and people more powerful than her. But all throughout the story, she's learning more. She's becoming more clever. She's like kind of developing these instincts on how to survive with these people and stuff like that. So we get to this point where she's basically been sold into slavery by this woman to this dragon, but the dragon has no real context of it. So she's just basically being given away. But when she starts to speak, the girl immediately speaks up and tells the dragon, like, here, I've brought a slave for you, and immediately like pawns off the person, her captor. She ends up pawning off her captor, and then the dragon basically takes it immediately. It's like, okay, cool. So she like immediately flips the script on her, and I thought it was just such a well done scene because I didn't see it coming. And this book is kind of familiar to like people who've seen The Princess Bride and stuff, because there's like a lot of similar themes and stuff. So there's parts of it and stuff that I feel like people would have been able to predict by having contextual knowledge of that movie, but I had never seen the movie, so I had no no, I didn't even have a crumb to speculate with, to try to figure it out. So it just blindsided me entirely, and just the way it happened was so much fun in context with the story and like everything that led up to it. It just made me laugh so hard because I'm like, that is so clever, and it just works that well because the dragon has no allegiance to either group of people. So like the dragon doesn't care, like whatever, like if you're going to bring me a slave, it doesn't matter who it is, really, they'll just be my assistant anyway. So like I just love how easily it just kind of flipped by her being more clever and stuff, and it just was like such a fun kind of not culmination of the character, but just like this kind of fun like shining point of the character's traits that they have since developed since the beginning of the story. So I just really like the way Brandon did that, and it just was so much fun. And just the world building context around that entire scene is also just a lot of fun and really cool. So yeah, but that's my number four. I thought it was very clever, really well, really well written, and a lot of fun, and just so funny. It's like you can tell now it's making me chuckle just thinking about it. So yeah, that's definitely why that's my number four. So let's move on to number three. So, number three is from another Drew Hayes book called Forging Hephaestus. So, this is another book that kind of, it takes place on a different world, on a different version of Earth, but it's similar to superpowers in that the majority of the people have superpowers and they're superheroes and supervillains and stuff. But this series more takes place on the side of the villain. So, we're following the origin of a new villain and stuff. So, this villain is not really like evil or like truly into like any truly villainous stuff. She's just kind of a thief, really. So in terms of villainy, she's kind of low grade and stuff. But her mentor, who helps her kind of through the process of initiation and stuff, he back in the day used to be an incredibly notorious villain to the point where like he should be in prison forever, but he kind of got by helping the world against this huge world-ending threat, he was basically allowed to retire and stuff. So he's been living in anonymity for like 20 years or so almost. And so everybody thinks he's dead. Nobody knows like what happened to him and stuff like that. So it's set up this mystery that this guy is gone. He hasn't been around. Nobody expects him to pop up. So of course there's a scenario in which some characters did know who he was, and they basically set him up in such a way where they're trying to awaken the demon kind of thing. And it works. They basically make him believe that I don't want to say what happened because that's a fairly solid spoiler, but basically they trick him and it causes him to be absolutely triggered. And he's basically sitting down in this chair circled by magical runes that are supposed to be powerful enough to hold back the magical equivalent of a charging rhino or charging elephant or whatever. And he just like, he immediately starts to get mad, and then the rings of runes around him just burst into flames and they just like dissolve and stuff, like because his magic is so potent and so powerful, and it's pure chaos magic, which is near impossible to bind in that way. So he just like kind of awakens to pure anger, and his eyes go completely black except for red runes that sit on his eyes, and then he just lays waste. And it's just so fun. It's so fun. The scene in which he wakes up and becomes Fornax again is really, really cool because it's so menacing, so threatening, and you can feel the palpable fear on the, in the dialogue within the other characters and stuff. So like you can feel their fear and you feel the threat, and like, but you're also at the same time you're on his side. So you're like, yay, retribution, get them. Like, so you're totally on his side, just like definitely cheering him on and stuff. So I just really love that, and it's just like it's the coolest thing ever when there's just this like near unbeatable force, but he's quote unquote evil, but he's actually in the time since he's been retired or whatever, he's mellowed out and stuff, and he's a really cool person unless you push him or do what they did. So it's just a lot of fun. I just really loved it. I thought it was just a great use of that type of character who's essentially been like this promise throughout the majority of the book. Like you get told about how powerful he is and how much of a menace he used to be and this kind of stuff, but like we don't ever get an actual example of it. So for them to do this, for Drew to actually choose to use this as like a last ditch kind of thing in order to give us a proper example of how powerful he is, I thought it was just chef's kiss. It was just done so well. It was just done so well. It lived up to and surpassed the promise of that character. So it just was done great. It was done great. And most of these sequences are battle sequences. So yeah, but I thought that was great. It was just so much fun. I adored it. It was just so good. Chef's kiss, like I said, a great story. a great character and just a great book series. And book three comes out soon, and I am really excited about that one. Actually, I've kind of gone back and forth on my number two and my number one. I've gone back and forth on my number two and my number one. So, they, depending on the day, number two could be number one and number one could be number two. So yeah, I know most people when they talk about like great sequences and stuff, and they include Brandon Sanderson, which is where this next sequence comes from. Most people would think about that arena battle in Words of Radiance. While my favorite sequence does come from Words of Radiance, it's not that scene in particular. My favorite is You Cannot Have My Pain. When Dalinar opens Honor's path and defeats the Thrill, it is beautiful. It is like beautiful. I cried. That part of the book, I actually cried because just everything Dalinar was going through, like the way in which that capstones his character arc for those books. So this sequence happens at the end of Oathbringer, where Dalinar opens Honor's path. When he opens the perpendicularity, it's such a great kind of not capstone, but like kind of a great flashpoint for his character arc, because he's been going through so much and he's been remembering so much, and like therefore going through it again and like dealing with all this kind of stuff, and like basically he's been put through a meat grinder so that he can come out the other side a better person, and you can feel the grinding of it basically, and he's just been through hell. And so when he reaches this point, this ultimate conclusion, and like takes full responsibility for everything he's done, it's just such a beautiful piece of character work. I love it so much. And then like the culmination of like You Cannot Have My Pain, which is like the temptation of the god trying to basically corrupt him. So like he rejects that, and then like he embraces his pain, which is embracing the responsibility of the things he's done so that he can literally take the next step and be a better person. It's just one of the greatest character arcs ever. It's just so good. It's so good. And it's like so philosophically resonant because it completely applies, like it applies to my life, even though like I've been through nothing to the level of Dalinar. But like everything in it is so completely inspirational. Everything about his character arc has some sort of resonance to my life and to a lot of other people's lives that I've heard talk about it in various forms and things. So it's that much more impressive that Brandon can write something that hits so universally while being so character specific in this book. So it's just done so well, just so well. Like I feel like I'm a broken record at this point because it's just like I like it. It's done so well. I like it. Like that's basically all I'm saying. But like, how much more is there to say without completely spoiling and reiterating the entire scene? But it's just so good. It's so good. I would love an adaptation of it, but God, I am terrified of any Stormlight adaptations because if y'all get anything wrong, it's just, yeah, yeah. All right, so yeah, let's go ahead and move on to number one / number two, depending on the day. So my number one / number two, depending on the day, has to be the scene Ashaman Kill. I can't remember which Wheel of Time book it comes from, but it's in the Wheel of Time. It's the scene where a lot of the male channelers are together and they're in battle and they can just unleash their power, and they just unleash. Like, it is so destructive, it is so intense, and it is again one of these instances of delivering on a promise throughout the entire series. Like, multiple books where we're hearing that male channelers are incredibly dangerous. They're incredibly dangerous apart from the fact that they'll go insane and just kill people around them when they go insane. It's they're dangerous in general. Like, they often have more power, like more force ability with the one power. So like they're often stronger in certain types of attacks and things. So like we've been told all this stuff over and over and over and over and over. So to finally get a scene that perfectly illustrates their level of destructive capability, I was like, I was just like, don't. And then the thing is, that's so amazing. Like, that was a group of Ashaman doing that level of damage. And we know Ran is stronger than a huge group of Ashaman and Aes Sedai. So for me, that just contextualized how powerful Rand actually is. And it just made me realize, I'm like, we are playing with forces on a level that is staggering. Like, it's just, it was so intense. It was so good. There's also another sequence, but I didn't actually add it to the list, but it would be probably wrapped into this one. It's the scene where one of the characters, this is a character Brandon wrote in one of the Wheel of Time books that he finished. So it's, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to try to be overly distinguished in terms of, or be overly discriminative in terms of how I credit it, to Robert versus Brandon. But in any case, that other scene where I can't remember the character's name, but where he's really good at gateways, but that's like all he's really good at. But he start using gateways to just like wipe out an entire battlefield and stuff, because that was just epic too. That was one of the greatest use of limited ability that Brandon's done. And I love that it's so early on in his writing too. Like, so it's just really, really cool. But again, the sequence that we're talking about is Ashaman kill. When the leader of the Ashaman, the leader of that group or whatever, says Ashaman kill, rolling ring of earth and fire, and they just turn an entire battlefield into like a meat grinder that's on fire. And it's like, it's insane. It's so cool. I love it so much. It's so intense. And it's one of the coolest scenes in fantasy I've ever read. It's one of the coolest scenes in all of Wheel of Time. And it's just so awesome. The sequence, I guess, is technically Dumas Well. That's but I can't remember which book that's specifically from for some reason. Like, whatever. I'm not even going to guess. There's like 15 books. So yeah, and you all probably know which one I'm talking about, because it's probably one of the more famous sequences in the entire Wheel of Time series. So yeah, let's go ahead and end this video there. Those are my top 5 favorite sequences in fantasy. Let me know in the comments down below, what are some of your favorite sequences in fantasy? Do you agree that any of the ones on my list are really, really good? Do you agree with the placement? Or do you think they don't even belong on anyone's top 5 list? Let me know about that in the comments down below. And as always, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And if you're interested, please go ahead and check out the Patreon. You can support the channel in that way, and I would really, really appreciate it. But otherwise, of course, leave a like and a comment and all that good stuff. And as always, I will talk to y'all next time. Peace.